Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the continuing fallout over the reports that Suella Braverman broke the law and then tried to abuse her position to gain special privilege in covering it up, with the news not just being splashed across the Sunday Times, but the Mail on Sunday as well. There's been a credible suggestion made that maybe Braverman is being warned by Sunak to wind her neck in. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So there's been a bit of displacing in the old schedule again. The situation with the Teesside Freeport will have to wait. In the stream last night, I began by discussing what was at the time breaking news that Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary and the most senior politician in charge of law and order, had broken the law last year. She was caught speeding, had the usual choice between penalty points and a speed awareness course, and tried to abuse her position to arrange a private speed awareness course so that members of the public would not find out she was a criminal. Now, because both Home Office officials and the police appeared to deny her, she ended up taking the points. But the way she tried to abuse her position in this way seems to be at least worthy of an investigation as to whether it's a breach of the ministerial code. Now, this story was first broken by the Times yesterday. It's on the front page of the Sunday Times today. Rishi Sunak was asked if he was going to order an investigation into Braverman, by a BBC journalist at the G7 press conference, and he refused to answer. He asked, "Are there any questions about the G7?" Which looks incredibly weak. Incredibly weak. Just as over the past week, it has looked very much like Sunak is in the thrall of Braverman's faction. That Braverman is basically calling the shots. Sunak has to placate her. However, don't get me wrong, this is making Sunak look weak. There is another reading of the situation that I think is deserving of merit, and it is actually that Sunak is showing a bit of steel, as bizarre as that sounds. Because this news was not just on the front page of the Sunday Times, but the Mail on Sunday as well. Now, that was unexpected. The Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday are basically used, they're like mercenaries. They support one or other faction in the Tory party. If they attack one part of the Tory party on their front page, it's because they're doing so on behalf of another part. So then you start to wonder something. Why are we finding out about this Braverman scandal now? Happened last summer. It's been leaked now. Why? We know about Robert Jenrick's speeding offence as another senior Tory. That was all over the news. He's received a speeding ban. A driving ban, sorry. It's certainly banned from speeding. But that was all over the news. No hiding that. There's other politicians. The politicians seem to get caught on a regular basis. This story about Braverman, we didn't find anything about it until now. And if it was covered up before, because it must have been covered up when it happened, because we find out about it normally, we didn't find out in this case. So why has it suddenly come out now? Why was it in someone's interest to cover it up last year, not now? A little bit like Partygate, isn't it? It was reported a very long time after it happened. Why? Because someone was waiting for Boris Johnson to become vulnerable. Waiting for a time when he couldn't just shrug it off. Waiting so they could go for the jugular. Now, Sam Friedman, who's a political commentator of rather more renown, made an extremely good point. He said it looks like a warning shot. Stay in line because we've got a stack of these to give out. And I think he's right on the money. Braverman went completely off the rails last week. It's clear that if she doesn't have her wings clipped, she's going to completely crash whatever plans Sunak has as he prepares for the next election. I've already said that her interests are not aligned with Sunak's because she gains from the Conservatives doing badly, losing even, and Rishi Sunak having to step down. Now, it would be different if she were fighting a challenging seat, but she isn't. Her seat is very safe. And if she wants to be leader as soon as possible, then the sooner the Conservatives lose an election, all the better for her. It is no good for Sunak to have such a senior colleague be actively working against the interests of himself and the party. He either has to sack her or shorten her leash. Now, it seems that sacking her will be difficult because it's clear she must still have support in the parliamentary party. You know, if he could, he would have used this to force a resignation basically already. He at least would have announced an investigation. I mean, maybe he still will, but that's not the impression I'm getting. You know, the not answering that question about an ethics investigation doesn't mean he won't do so. You know, it means that he doesn't want to talk about it just yet. Now, you could think, well, why not? You know, what's he waiting for? Either say there's nothing to investigate or say that there is. Well, there are two things he may be waiting for. The first is to gauge public opinion. Like, it's no good covering for Braverman, then finding out that you suffer personal reputational loss in public. Boris Johnson made that mistake all the time. Decided to double down on a thing or to defend a thing or to, you know, whatever. Then it turns out the public really weren't standing for it. Then he had to U-turn. So maybe Sunak's just waiting to see which way the wind is blowing. How much of a public backlash will there be to this news? But there's also a second possible reason. If Sunak has arranged for this story to be leaked, if he's behind it, he might be waiting for his people to have a quiet little word with Braverman, tell her that this is all he needs to get rid of her, but he'll won't this time. He'll look after her. He's given her the chance to behave herself. If she agrees, we'll say no more about it. If she doesn't, he'll set his ethics advisor on her and then she will be sacked. If she agrees to behave and then steps out of line again, he will leak something else, more damaging, and then use the next scandal to drop her. What's it to be, Suella? Now, this is speculation, of course, but there is a reason why the Mail on Sunday is weighing in on this one. Someone asked in a comment on the stream video I saw this morning if it being in the Mail on Sunday was significant. And the answer is yes, absolutely, 100%. It's incredibly significant. There is absolutely a reason beyond because it's newsworthy. You know, it's the sort of story, yes, the Sunday Times would report on, but the Mail on Sunday or the Daily Mail, no. Not unless there's a reason. And that it's not good enough for that reason to be because it's newsworthy. Neither version of the Mail is interested in reporting the news. They like to make the news. Their aim is to decide what the news is. And they have decided that the news should be Suella Braverman being unfit for office. Now, yes, you read the article and it's sort of trying to downplay it a little bit, but it's still right there on the front page. Now, it may be that Sunak isn't warning Braverman at all and he intends to use this to sack her. But if that were the case, why not immediately announce the investigation? Now, I think Sam Friedman's right here. I think the logical interpretation of all of this, when you factor in the involvement of the Mail, has to be that this is indeed almost certainly a warning to a loose cannon, to someone who's derailing the Tories, right? It hasn't come without cost to Sunak. He is now going to have to fend off opposition attacks of weakness and sleaze. Sunak may have calculated that people won't be all that bothered about this particular issue because, you know, it's related to a speeding offence, which you know, many people don't seem to care about. After all, if he does have a stack of these ready to leak to a willing press, he'll also have presumably picked the least damaging one to go first. Imagine what else he's got in his locker if Braverman doesn't wind a neck in. In the meantime, he takes the hit from the opposition for backing another cabinet minister who attempted to abuse her position, safe in the knowledge that the damage will be minimal because ultimately she failed to get what she wanted in this case. So although she attempted to abuse her position, she didn't actually abuse it because she was told, no, Home Secretary, that's not appropriate. And of course, it is about a speeding offence, which lots of the public don't care much about because lots of the public speed anyway. It will certainly be less damaging to let Labour have a pop of this than to have allowed a loose cannon to operate within his cabinet. So he may see it as, you know, you're taking a slap in the face rather than a kick in the balls, and certainly less damaging than just sacking her out of hand and having to deal with the infighting. After all, let's say she doesn't behave and then another more damaging scandal is leaked to the press in preparation for wielding the axe on this wayward Home Secretary. Then he can build up public dissatisfaction with Braverman, which will serve two ends. She's already not popular, bear in mind. First, it will make it impossible for her supporters to argue she should remain in cabinet. You know, something like this, if Sunak just gets rid of her, her supporters will argue, hang on, it's not that big a deal, is it? So if he's got something else, something much juicier, then that'll be different. You know, just as with Raab, Williamson, Zahawi, if Tory MPs almost universally accept the fact that the position is untenable, then off they pop to the backbenchers. But secondly, it also salts the earth for her future leadership bid when Sunak inevitably does step down next year. So from other news, I'm getting the impression that Sunak is taking steps to avoid a loony replacing him as leader after the election. Now, I don't think he'll succeed, but I'll discuss it at some point later this week anyway. But if there were to be a flurry of Braverman-related scandals reported in the press, and she's clearly conducted herself with some reckless abandon, so there may well be, especially those which speak of her personal unsuitability without damaging the Conservatives collectively, then Braverman may well find herself out of the running for the post-election leadership contest before she's even warmed up. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.